the first thing is, let me find the, okay, let's be on time for the time given to us. We get 20 minutes to present. 15 minutes, at the 15-minute marks, I will notify the remaining time. And then after that, we will continue with a question and answer. You can do it by two ways. First is you can raise your hand, that you have that feature in the participant sections on the Zoom apps. And then secondly, you can also write down, either you want to write down the question, or you just write down that you want to ask your question directly to the presenter. All right. And then we will prioritize participants who wish to pose questions verbally. I will check that. And for the participants, I need you to choose a quiet location and please mute yourself during the presentation, and rewrite your name using the institutions and underline, and then your full name. And then be concise and respectful of others wishing to comment. And then, so of course, you know this already, and that please convey on the argument rather than the attacking the persons. And let's stick to the agenda. So I think it's time this morning for the parallel session 4. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Bangkit Wiryawan. I am a PhD student at the Graduate School of International Development, Nagoya University. This would be my last semester, I hope, if everything's good. And today we have 3 presenters, supposedly. The first one would be Ibu Kikin Windhani. The title of the presentation is Analysis on Human Capital Inequality Between Regions in Indonesia with Alternative Human Development Index Approach. Very interesting title. And secondly is School, School Integration and Education Outcomes. Okay, someone's speaking. Oh, Pak Daniel, welcome, Pak Daniel Suryadarma. And then secondly, we have School Integration and Education Outcomes in Indonesia, Geographic Information System, Micro Simulation and Computable General Equilibrium Analysis by Pak Bondi Arifin. I think, let me check, it's not here yet. Then last one, we have Education Equality Across Indonesia's District Estimation from a Policy Experiment. So those are very interesting topics, but let me introduce Ibu Kiki Windhani first for the first presentation. Ibu.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you have 20 minutes. I will mark it at the 15 minutes, and please,
okay.
The time and place is yours.
Okay, I will share the PowerPoint.
Hi.
Oh, okay.
All right.
A minute. Okay. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for moderator for the opportunity given to us to present the findings of our research at IRSA 2021. For the first, allow us to introduce ourselves. I'm Kikin Windhani, and my co-promoter, Ibu Mulyaningsih, from PDA UNS Surakarta. We will present our finding research with entitled Analysis on Human Capital Inequality Between Regions in Indonesia with Alternative Human Development Index approach.
Okay, Bu Kikin, can I stop you for 1 minute? We see the what is the sides of the presentation, not the full slides. Can you switch the monitor? Anyone can help with this? We are seeing the the back sides of the presentation slide. Kita ngelihat ininya Mbak, apa yang slide 1 sampai 22 terus ada catatannya kebalik jadinya.
Maksudnya?
Apa halaman slide-nya kebalik, kita ngelihat catatannya Mbak Kikin.
Iya.
Yang ada Assalamualaikum, thank you for moderator. Saya baca itu.
Okay.
It's okay. I think I saved 2 minutes before we start, so I think we have around 1 minute.
Okay.
Let's try. Okay. Anyone can help with this?
Okay.
No problem.
Okay.
Are you using a double screen, dual screen mode?
No.
Just one laptop. Okay.
Yes. Wait a minute.
Just in case you want me to share the screen, it's okay. Otherwise, we can still go with that. Just like before. Okay. Iya, nggak apa-apa.
Atau saya di-switch aja dulu di di presentasi berikutnya, bolehkah? Saya akan pakai 2 PC kalau tidak ini.
Mau dicoba dulu sekali, 1 aja.
Okay.
Atau kalau mau di-share ke Mbak Sela untuk dibantu ininya, tayangannya. Okay, let's see. Yep. Okay, perfect. This one works. All right, let's continue.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for moderator giving us to present our research. For the first, I introduce ourselves. My name is Kikin Windhani and my co-promoter Ibu Tri Mulyaningsih. I am from PDI UNS Surakarta. I will present our finding result. Our research entitled Analysis on Human Capital Inequality Between Regions in Indonesia with the Alternative Human Development Index approach. Okay, the background is inequality between regions in the main problem in Indonesia, covering inequality in development result, existence of natural resource, and distribution of human resource. And then the second, the main issues in inequality in human capital in previous research is Katauka, Anwar, Anugrah, and Mulyaningsih. We can see at the picture 1, we can show that educational attainment and the education level of the workforce. This is, we can see the educational attainment in Indonesia in terms of quantity. We measure with main year schooling, and the quality of human capital we measure with high school national exam scores. Still shows the disparity between regions in Indonesia. Likewise, when view from the educational level of the workforce, it still shows the same thing. We can show that Java is still the center of distribution of human capital. And then the other side, human capital is an important factor in the economic growth of a region, such Menku, Romer, Bero, Fagian Mekan, Mahanu Sekimkon, and Tanner and Avandi. And then human capital inequality will cause income inequality between regions in the previous of Castelo Climan, Senaja, Kungor, Latapipat, and Poki. And then the other background, measurement of human capital is still limited because there is still much debate in the determining the appropriate measure of your human capital. And then currently, Human Development Index is considered a relatively complete measurement of human capital because it uses several dimensions of human capital, such as economic, education, and health dimension. But in some recent studies, there have been criticism of HDI because it excludes other dimension of human capital. We can see in Olhak, Paul, Hicks, Masumdar, Salzburgin, Bravo, Tanner, and Harkness. And then novelty and the research purpose. The novelty in our research is adopting the Human Development Index human capital measurement by adding several dimensions related to human capital. We adding the dimension of freedom, health status, and the gender empowerment. And then the research purpose, measure of human capital in Indonesia using the modified Human Development Index and mapping the distribution of human capital between regions in Indonesia based on AHDI. This chart shows human capital measurement. We can see that human capital measurement divide two approach, conventional approach and the new approach. Conventional approach have three approach, outcome-based approach, cost-based approach, and income-based approach. And then the new approach, we have two approach from UNDP. We have a Human Development Index and International Labor Office Market atau dalam bahasa Indonesia indikator utama pasar tenaga kerja or KILM. And then our research use modified Human Development Index and we namely alternative Human Development Index. This chart shows the dimension of Human Development Index. We know that human capital have three components. It's capability, choice, and then opportunity. And then in HDI, we have three dimension. We have three main dimension in human capital. It's education, and then economy, and then longevity. Some of the factors Indonesia that cause inequality in human capital. Gnowly says that geography, natural resource, institution, culture, or habit is some factors that cause inequality in human capital in Indonesia. And then Katauka says geography, population, natural resource, and social difference. And then Mulyaningsih says that factor that cause the inequality in human capital in Indonesia is skill premium. And then methodology in our research in measure alternative human development index, we using the geometric mean to reduce measurement bias due to the use different variable units, and this measurement seems likely of measurement of HDI, and then the
Ibu Kikin. Okay, I think we have a disconnection over there. Let's wait for 1 minute, shall we? Okay, let me try to send message to Ibu Kikin. Let's see. Okay, Bu Kikin is off of this meeting, so I think rather than waiting for her to coming back, she can continue if we have time. But let's move on to the second presenter. And the second presenter today is about school integration and education outcomes by Bondi Arifin. Let me check if Pak Bondi is here. Oh, Bondi. Okay, maybe no. Any of the participants is a representative of this research, school integration and education outcome in Indonesia, geographic information system, microsimulation, computable general equilibrium analysis. All right, so if not, then let's move on to Pak Goldy Dharmawan. He's going to talk about the education quality across Indonesia's district, estimations from a policy experiment. Okay. Pak Goldy, are you there? Meanwhile, okay, let's give 1 minute to wait for the presenter. Okay. I see, I got a message. Maybe there's some trouble in Indonesia right now. Okay, so for anyone joining now, we are sorry that we have disconnections from the presenter, and we will wait for 1 or 2 minutes before move on to the next presentation. Okay, Bu Kikin is here. Bu Kikin,
okay,
hi, Bu Kikin, okay, it's okay. Take your time. Can you share your screen again?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Our finding results, AHDI measurement result shows that in general, AHDI has a lowest score between AHDI, but we can show that the score is shows the pola yang sama, have same
pattern.
Yeah, okay, the same pattern. The DKI Jakarta have a highest score in AHDI, so in HDI, and then the lowest score AHDI is Papua, and the AHDI is still Papua in the lowest score. Okay. In AHDI, there are 15 regions experience an increase in AHDI ranking compared to HDI. It's South Sumatra, Bengkulu, Lampung, Central Java, East Java, Bali, and then West Nusa Tenggara, East Nusa Tenggara, Central Kalimantan, South Kalimantan, North Sulawesi, Central Sulawesi, South Sulawesi, Gorontalo, and West Sulawesi. And then 13 regions experience a decline in ranking compared to HDI, include North Sumatra, West Sumatra, Riau, Jambi, Bangka Belitung Island, Riau Island, West Java, Banten, East Kalimantan, North Kalimantan, Southeast Sulawesi, Maluku, and North Maluku. And then 6 regions have a fixed rank. Aceh, DKI Jakarta, Daerah Istimewa Yogyakarta, West Kalimantan, West Papua, and Papua. And then in this result of cluster analysis, we have 4 cluster, high cluster, middle cluster, low cluster, and very low cluster. A high cluster, we have Bangka Belitung Island, Riau Island, Jogja, Bali, West Nusa Tenggara, East Kalimantan, North Kalimantan, and DKI Jakarta. And then in the middle cluster, we have regions Aceh, North Sumatra, West Sumatra, Riau, Lampung, Central Java, South Kalimantan, North Sulawesi, Central Sulawesi, South Sulawesi, Gorontalo, Jambi, South Sumatra, Bengkulu, West Java, East Java, Banten, East Nusa Tenggara, West Kalimantan, Central Kalimantan, Southeast Sulawesi, West Sulawesi, Maluku, and North Maluku. And then low cluster is West Papua, and then very low cluster is Papua. This is shows that distribution of human capital based on AHDI in high cluster. We can see that the DKI Jakarta have a highest score, and the lowest is in the West Nusa Tenggara. And then from this table, we can show that distribution of human capital based on HDI in high cluster for index that HDI, the high cluster have highest score in living standard index, and then lowest in general empowerment index. And then this is shows that distribution of human capital based on HDI in middle cluster. Jawa Tengah, Central Java is the highest score of HDI, and then the lowest score is in West Kalimantan. And then from the table, we can show that the middle cluster have highest score in life expectancy index, and then the lowest score is in the economics index. This chart shows that the distribution of human capital based on AHDI in low cluster and the very low cluster. In low cluster, we have West Papua, and then in the very low cluster, we have Papua. In West Papua, the highest index score in life standard index, and then the lowest in score in index democracy index, and then the in the very low cluster, the highest score index in life standard index, and then the lowest is in the life standard index. Sorry, highest score is in the
life expectancy
index.
Okay.
And then the lowest in the life standard index.
Okay.
The conclusion, the distribution of human capital in the high cluster has a high average achievement of human capital compared to other regions. Almost all index achievement are the highest compared to other regions, except for the gender empowerment index. In the middle cluster, the average human capital achievement is lower than the high cluster, but has a higher score on a gender empowerment index. And then in the low cluster and very low cluster have the lowest human capital index achievement among the other two cluster. In the low cluster, West Papua, which has a low achievement of human capital, the democracy index is the lowest index. Only on educational attainment, decent living standard, life expectancy, and an economic index, which is higher than the lowest cluster. The very low cluster, Papua, has a low human capital achievement compared to the high, medium, and the low cluster. The lowest index achievement is a decent standard of living. From the result of the cluster analysis, it is known that the Bangka Belitung Island, and then Riau Island, East Kalimantan, and West Nusa Tenggara are in one cluster. This shows that the human capital is concentrated in areas which rich in natural resources. This is in accordance with the findings of Katauka, Kenauli, and then from Mulyaningsih, areas that are rich in natural resource will require special skills, where this skill will have an impact on high level of wage. So the implication, AHDI can be used as a reference in making development policies by looking at the more complex and diverse dimension of human capital owned by each region. For the example, in the high cluster, although it has a high human capital achievement, it still has a low gender empowerment achievement index, so that the local government can make policies that expand women's opportunities to access resources in the area. And low and very low cluster require development priorities on human capital, because human capital achievement are still low and on all dimension human capital. And then clustering can be used by government to mapping the distribution of human capital between regions in Indonesia and determine the priorities policy for human capital development that are more targeted. Okay, this is our presentation, and the time giving back to moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the excellent presentation, Ibu Kikin. Let me check for any direct question first. If not, then let me read one question from the audience. From SM Rodia. So this is for you, Bu Kikin. The question is, from the conclusion, it stated that other index is highest except for gender empowerment. What does it imply? So about gender empowerment, can you give some explanation? Yeah, Ibu Kikin.
Okay. The implication. I think in Indonesia the gender empowerment is still low because the women are apa ya bahasa Indonesianya ya, belum mendapat banyak kesempatan untuk mengakses sumber-sumber ekonomi, education, and a job.
They didn't get the equal access.
Yes, yes.
All right. I think everyone understands your explanation. And okay, SM Rodia, I think that answered that. Oh, SM is the name of the institution. So Ibu Rodia. Okay, let me check again for the next question. So for me, I think my interest is on the technicalities. How long did it take for you to gather all the necessary data to calculate your alternative human development index? Can you tell us a little bit story about that?
Okay. Can I with bahasa?
Yeah, it's okay.
Perjalanannya agak panjang untuk menemukan apa namanya, sampai pada akhirnya kami menggunakan alternative human development index dari beberapa literatur. Ini sebenarnya adalah penelitian hasil apa namanya dari apa namanya di sekolah di PDIE atas bimbingan dari Ibu Tri Mulyaningsih gitu. Kemudian diarahkan mengambil human capital, di mana dari beberapa referensi memang mengatakan bahwa pengukuran modal manusia itu masih sangat debatable, ukuran apakah yang paling sesuai untuk digunakan di masing-masing negara, sehingga kemudian kami mengambil celah teori ini yang kami gunakan untuk bagaimana ketika kita mengukur modal manusia di Indonesia with another measurement except human development index.
I see. Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Kikin. And if I don't see any other question or answer, let's move on to the second presentations. I would like to introduce Bapak Bondi Arifin with the title School Integration and Education Outcomes in Indonesia, Geographic Information System, Microsimulation and Computable General Equilibrium Analysis. Okay, Bapak Bondi Arifin, the time and place is yours.
Thank you, Pak Bangkit Wiryawan, and all ladies and gentlemen in here. First of all, I do apologize for my late coming because I had required meeting with the Ministry of Finance, personnel. So let me share my screen. Yeah, this is our title, An Alternative to School Construction, School Integrations, Education, and Economic Inequality Reduction in Indonesia with different methodologies, 3 different methodologies, actually 4. It's not by me myself, but there are some people involved, including my colleagues, Anda Nugroho, Eko Wicaksono, Abdul Aziz, Ahmad Yasin, Profesor Junaidi, and Sri Wibowo. It is research from fiscal policy agencies, for policy and also academic purposes. So the introduction is because we know Indonesia's population is growing. Both the labor age areas, ages, and also the elderly. But we also say we also have a limited physical access to education, primarily for secondary education. So Indonesia also have a large geographic variations. And then one of prescription is due by Duflo. It's a famous one, to massive primary school constructions in 1970s. And they found that it is have a good impact to education. However, since large geographically, maybe we need another prescription. So this is one of an alternative prescription that we want to show you is about school integration. Actually, this is our finding as well. However, to make it a more intuition, I put it in here. We created a school geographically index. We use as a weighted average between of number of school in a village, and then also difficulty accesses. We are using from PODES 2018, and then we aggregate it to a level of a province to make it easier to see. We see there is many provinces have quite high difficulty index, primarily in Aceh, Sumatera Utara, and also Sulawesi, and then Papua. So it means that geographically, school accessibility is still a problem in Indonesia. On average, we found from PODES, there is 11% Indonesia doesn't have a primary school, but then larger for SMP and SMA, 52% for SMP and 70% villages doesn't have SMA. That's what we found. And we let's see to take it closer. We know here in Sulawesi, there is a high difficulty index, and then we take closer of those areas. We see that if we see the geographical school index, it's related to distance to school, to junior high school and senior high school. If we see here, distance to primary school, only a few villages have a high distance to primary school. However, if we see to the junior and senior high school, primarily and senior high school, all red, all getting red, and they need some areas, more areas, need to go about 50 kilometers just to go to the nearest high school areas. So what is this paper contributions? This contribution, because we use a large representative data and also administrative data. Other than we use different models to conflict each other, we make it like a complementary. For example, we use website scraping to get information from Ministry of Education. And then we also use a GIS and use a micro simulation and macro simulation to create a comprehensive review from distance to economic growth. And then I think we also are the first paper, so much based on our knowledge that use big data. And then we also put analysis nationally, but using a regional settings. That's our contribution. It is just for the economic intuition. We put the where is our school integration coming from the PT or the transportation cost. And then this is would create a higher transportation cost, would lead to smaller school for children. And then how we put it on a macroeconomic modeling, we use Cobb Douglas, and then put in here, schooling is part for human capital, and human capital used for the CGE modeling. So what is our data and methodology? Our data, if we are using a data scraping, using a Python, that to scrape school locations across all of Indonesian areas from Aceh to Papua. And then to analyze, we use a geographic information system, QGIS3, and also STADA to see, like we showed before. And then we also use a village potential and Susanas, 2011, 2014, 2018. And also, we also use an IO to make, we forgot to put it here, an IO to, for the CGE model. This is, we are using the micro simulation. We are using a repeated cross section because Susanas is a repeated cross section. and then we combine with a PODES. So what we do is we aggregate the PODES into district level and then combine with Susenas. Because we know there are a lot of factors affecting education. We use many controls, including individual controls, household controls, and also environmental itself controls. So we include a bunch of controls to make it more stable. And then we use also CGE based on 2000 Indonesian IO models. And in CGE, we are using Indoterm. It's helped by our colleagues under Nugroho. So I just requote from a policymaker why this is important. We are still looking for which junior high school the community deserves and needs. Because if you are looking for a vacant plan, the cost is quite high. So there is more people are demanded for this school integration actually. But then what we call about school integration, as you guys already maybe guess, we combine SD, SMP, and SMU in one location instead of separate locations. So why is it possible? Actually, the regulation already put it is possible. Regulation number 2072 2013 said integrated school is a form of education that is implemented between levels of education in one location and has one organization and one management. So it is already possible from the regulation. However, why it's not happened a lot yet? Because there are another regulation which is not support for the previous regulation. For example, law number 23 of 2014 states the responsibility of SD or SMP education within scope of district government atau kabupaten, but then the provincial government responsible for SMA and SMK. And then central government for the more higher education. So there is a separation of authorities between school management for SD, SMP, SMA, and also university. Although in this case, in year regulation number 72, it requires one management. So that's why if we see in here, it is a school distributions in Indonesia. We see that SD distribution quite even between province. But then SMP and SMK, SMU is less, it's less even. So what we do, we make a Zoom to make it more intuitive in Papua, but we combine these four map into one, but we combine into Papua, and this is what we got. This is what we got. So this is a Papua. The green shading is a village which has a high school. And the red shading is a village that doesn't have a high school. But then we also see a small dot in here. A small dot is either SD or SMP. So if we see the small dot in here, we will see actually we have a big potential to provide either SMA or SMP, because more SD coming, we can upgrade into an SMP or SMA. But however, there are some like in this some areas there is no SD or SMP or SMA. Maybe we still need to make a new school. However, much of them we can just do to upgrade and integrate schools between SD, SMP, and SMA. So if we integrate, how we do integrate? We just put previously we just put what is the distance if an age, for example 13 to 15 or SMP to the closest SMP. That's what we do. And then with school integration, so we don't need to go to the nearest SMP, but any kind of school. We put it to any kind of school, either SD, SMP, and SMA. We see there is Papua primarily will benefit more, it could reduce up to at least about in average about 50 kilometers, and then it could be about 60 kilometers as well. And Kalimantan could reduce the school about 20 kilometers. That's what we found. And then the school reduction, distance and education attainment, we see there is still a correlation, and it is still a significant. If you see, if there is a village doesn't have any problems, a district doesn't have any problem with school, the average length of year of education about 7 or 8, but then it reduced to about only 3 or 4 if distance is about 60 kilometers. So it's we see correlations about it. And then our regulation also show a significant impact about 0.2. And we also find another interesting one is transportation also make it increase in education. So it's like complementary. If we put the school, first we can get the distance closer and then increase the education. And then if the transportation going on, it will improve more, it will get more impact to them, right? Kind of like that. However, it might not work for remote islands, as in here in the map you can see. This is like a small island in Kalimantan. In the small island, the closest school integration is another island, but then they still have a problem in transportation. So it might not work in a small island, and Indonesia still also have like thousands of small islands. So it's one alternative. We need another alternative as well. This is after we simulate estimate of education outcomes. We see the Papua will provide also, we already know Papua will benefit the largest largest distance reduction, and they also provide they also benefit for the largest school attainment increases if we do a simulation of it. And we also see, is there any potential cost saving? We still have limited data, however, but then we make like some potential cost saving. At least we found there is 2 potential cost saving. The first one is for power and service subscriptions. So instead of we pay electricity for 3 buildings, maybe we just need to pay 1 building, but maybe increase a higher building, right? Because we need to upgrade. So maybe we can reduce about either 1%, 10%, 20%, and 50%, and also reduce the school facilities and infrastructure maintenance. We put in 2 because we see the BOS. Is there any potential from BOS that we can reduce? However, we argue more saving can be done. For example, instead of creating more, there is 52% doesn't have junior high and 70% doesn't have senior high school. If we calculate about 78,000 schools we need to build. So we can save at least 78,000 land acquisition saving. So there is a huge number. That's what we think. That's a potential cost saving. And then if we go to the 4 minutes left. Okay, I think that's enough. And we put in the CGE modeling, it's done by our colleagues under Nugroho. He found that the Papua as well will benefit the largest increase in economic growth in the long run. However, in the long run, not in the short run. So this is a bold political agreement, because when we put a lot of money to school integration, for example, to building schools, to educate more teachers, gitu kan, to educate more teachers, and then but the benefit is not at that year. Maybe at that year for cost benefit, but not for the school and itself and not the economic rate itself. So, however, we see the Papua can jump about twice larger than other province because of this school integration. So this is our conclusion. There is still limited access in school, in primarily for junior high school and senior high school. We propose one alternative, school integration. It could maybe reduce the distance, saving costs, and then increase the economic growth in the long run. But we also put there is a limitation. The school integration may not work for very small islands, which is separated, very remote islands. It might not be working. So we also try to analyze by qualitatively how if we put a boarding school like in here, boarding school in SMP and SMA and 11 in Batam. This is a boarding school who are succeed because this boarding school, like in here, Ambon as well, in SMA and Sawalima, become an international standard school. However, our analysis also find much many challenges for other schools. Here, that the challenges for other schools we find is about if we found one success school, we found 8 unsuccessful. For example, lack of interest in boarding school. For example, is SMAN 1 Arut Utara. The dormitory only occupied by 3 students. And then we also find like SMAN 1 Arut Utara, Kupang, Raja Ampat, dan Sekayam, dormitory facilities are not in pretty good conditions. Yeah. Inadequate maintenance costs. They make it damage and then make it lack of interest to stay in boarding school. In addition, the difference between school integrations and boarding school is when the transportation is available. Yeah, for example, Indonesia now create a lot of infrastructures, road and infrastructure. The boarding school is less interest when the infrastructure and transportation is a better one because they prefer to stay with their mom instead of to stay in boarding school. People with school integration, with the better transportation and better infrastructure, it creates additional value to the school integration. I think that's all my presentations. Thank you, Pak Bangkit Wiryawan, and all ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Bondi. It's very timely presentation. So we are now on the. Can we stop the ticking clock? Okay, thank you very much for the host. Okay, it's time for question and answer. There are 2 ways that you can ask questions. First, you can use the raise hand feature. Or secondly, you can write down your questions and I will ask or read the question to the presenter. Let's wait. So while we are waiting, Pak Bondi, the presentation is very interesting, but that sparks another that I'm thinking that what about the role of a religious school? Is that in your model or is it separate? And do you have any, if you have not estimated, then you have any expectation on the role of a religious school? I think that your result implies that's only for public school under the Ministry of Education, right? Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Bangkit Wiryawan. That's a very good input for us. Yes. When we calculate the distance, we calculate the distance two different ways. The first one using PODES. PODES, they have like self-reported data about what the distance to the nearest school, we include the religious school at that time.
I see.
Because the PODES have that one. However, when we use the GIS to like drawing the illustration, we only have from the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education including public school and private school, but not including the religious school. So we we expect if we could include the religious school, maybe it will be less the distance impact. Maybe it will be less the distance impact. But then, yeah. So maybe if we include the religious school, we believe that our estimate supposed to be overestimate, right? Overestimate. Yeah, I think that's right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Bondi. And do we have any other questions? I have some other question for Pak Bondi, but let's see and wait. Okay, who's that? Oh, Pak Goldy?
Yeah.
Okay, you have questions. Those
yeah, I have a question on the data that you use. That it shows that you are using the PODES for making the scatter for the Papua, and it seems like you have the village code for the Papua. And yeah, so because as far as I can remember, it's quite hard for the public to access that variables, so we can match the PODES result with the GIS map. So that's the first one. The second one's how do you is there an example of a success story of the school integrations which conducted by the district governments or by the provincial governments? Because it seems like the management aspects of the schools are on the local governments. So I would like to know, is there any information about a good practice that has been done?
Okay, thank you, Pak Goldy Dharmawan. There are very interesting two questions. The first one is a PODES. Do we use a PODES for the drawing the Papua? Yes. So we combine between PODES and like I said, we combine with the Ministry of Education's school locations. We use a PODES to see whether is there any village has a high school or not a high school, with the green and the red one. And then we combine with the Ministry of Education school location, the dot of SD or SMP. So we combine of those schools, whether it is publicly available, the PODES, unfortunately, maybe we cannot say it is restricted, but you have to pay, right? Yeah. You have to pay to get the PODES. Fortunately, we are from the government, so the government can have a free of PODES and SUSUNAS. So that's maybe yeah, that's what we can get from our as a government. And then but the locations for school, for each school in Ministry of Education is publicly available. However, you can only grab one by one. So that's why we use a website scraping. We use a coding using a Python to grab one by one of those schools. It takes some time. However, it's worth it, I believe. It's worth it with our our finding today. Yeah. That's the first question. Is there any example of school integration? Yeah, it could be a pretty good input for us, because so far we find school integration is not much happen. So we don't find any, we don't see to look at for if there is any school integration, either success or failures. We see individual for it also qualitatively for boarding school. Yeah, but that's a good input. Maybe we can look at that example. Maybe like a boarding school, there is some school integration, but maybe it not work well. That's also possible. Thank you, Pak Goldy.
I see, Pak Goldy. Is that okay? Okay. All right. We have 2 questions from participants. Let me read the first one from Ibu Asi Murwiati from Unila. Will the existence of a boarding school or private school be able to reduce educational inequality in the context of school integration? That's the first one, Pak Bondi. And let me read also the second one in terms from Bu Tri Mulyaningsih, in terms of school integration. Do you only assume the efficiency cost due to construction, or you also include costs to support the availability of teachers, others of infrastructure related to education? That's an interesting question that I had also in mind. Silakan Pak Bondi.
Okay, thank you for Bu Asih Murwiati and Bu Tri Mulyaningsih. The first questions about from Bu Asih, will the existence of boarding school or a private school be able to reduce educational inequality in the context of school integration? That's an interesting question. Reduce the education inequality, I believe yes. Because we analyze, although it's only qualitatively, boarding schools are located in very small islands. So it increases the access to education. However, there is a problem. About the sustainability. Most of what we find, however, it might not be because we do qualitatively, it might not be representative from the population. We find only one who are succeed, and then the 8 might not succeed because of not sustainable. The boarding school was not in a good condition. Only few students want to stay here, stay there. So so it's less effective, we can say that. But based on our small samples, might not representative. And for the private school, however, we don't divide between private and public school, but we can see from there are many private schools located in many areas. For example, we know from the news, Cinta Laura provides 11 private schools to the remote areas. So maybe it's working until today. So it must be increase the school integration. What we can do, because Cinta Laura only provide us a very limited level of school, that's what we can improve to create not only SD but also SMP and SMA. That's how it could complementary in school integration. I think what we can tell to Bu Asih. And then Bu Tri, in terms of school integration, do you only assume efficiency costs due to in construction, or do you include costs to support the availability of teachers, other soft infrastructure related to education? Thank you, Bu Tri. Yeah, we provide, like we said before, we have a limitation in data for cost structure. So we only see the from both, what is the items in both that probably could can be saved. However, Bu Tri completely right. For example, if we create school integrate a separate school, maybe we need 11 teachers. But then with school integration, maybe we can only need not 5, because 5 but maybe we can have 10 instead of 15. So maybe there is a cost saving, and then also increase in school teachers. Why? Because now the teachers not only could teach SD, but also to SMA to increase their capability as well. I think that's a good question. So far, we only have limited data. We only use about the subscriptions and school maintenance. But we also tell you when we presented, it could be larger if we put other costs, for example, like land acquisition as well. 98,000 acquisition land and its land require at least 6,000 meter squares.
I see.
It could save a trillion, more trillion cost saving, I believe, but we don't have any data. So yeah, we cannot provide a number at that time. Thank you.
Pak Bondi, can you shortly respond to the question from Iska Aulia? If we integrate the school, will there be enough number of teachers in the regions available for this school? So about the availability of teachers.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Rizka. That's also a really good question. So in our paper, actually, we state our limitation. We assume if there is school integration, everything is okay. Yeah. For example, the school could, the restroom could cover, because we already put a distance, right? Closer distance. So you assume that everything is okay. The teacher is enough. Actually, in the real world, we know we need more. We need more studies. For example, now we already know. Oh, Papua is a very good candidate. Then we can simulate more for Papua. For example, we also find in our paper there are some schools who are more schoolroom other than the student itself. So we can focus on that areas, and then we also need to improve, of course, the teachers. Increase the teachers, focus on that areas, either the qualification and also the quantity of the teacher itself. Thank you, Bu Rizka. That's a very good input.
Thank you very much, Pak Bondi. And last one, I want to invite Pak Ruslan Nasruddin. Yes, please ask questions shortly.
Yeah, can you hear me? Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
Mas Bangkit, and nice presentation, Pak Bondi, and great idea. I just want to expand to the relevant situation of nowadays in the context of alternative approach in addition to physical integration. I think one of the lessons from the pandemic is education system is forced to online, and in the sense of the remote island area, I think physical integration can be substituted with this kind of new disruptions. What do you think about complementing this kind of physical integration with let's say, solving the digital divide problems of Indonesia by some innovative and productive equipment in those remote areas, so that like behind regions can access high quality teachers in the big and advanced locations. Just to expand. In any case, I sorry if I missed this discussion earlier. Thanks.
Thank you, Pak Ruslan. Shortly, Pak Bondi.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ruslan. That's a good, very good input. Yeah, we don't concern about the COVID-19 and the new digital area. We focus on physical, but you are right. And what we argue is there is two possibilities with the new digital era. The first one, maybe physical education system less important with the new digital era, because they can do like us, Zoom like this. However, we also find in many research nowadays, the impact of COVID, and then our like digital education system. There are men from all over the world, including SMERU, I believe, in here, and then say that the digital long distance like that, using a digital one, it reduces students' capability, and then it leads harder for people with poor families, larger for poor families. So we believe there are two possibilities. It could be, but then the result might not suggest we will still need a physical school after the COVID ends. At least after the COVID is under control. Those study require to improve to go to physical school. So I believe physical school is still important. And then how to improve in this COVID-19? We argue now everyone is still in school. It is the time for us to improve for example, the internet in school, and then it could saving more. Why? Instead of provide 3 different internet in SD, SMP, SMA, now we just need to improve one internet in one school and then make it like more speed. So when they go back to school, they can have an access to internet as well. So it could be less and it could be better with this school integration. I think that's what I think.
Okay, Pak Bondi. Thank you very much. And you have one comment that you can read in the chat section. So thank you very much, Pak Bondi, for the excellent presentations and for the participants for your questions. And next one, the last one is from Pak Goldy Dharmawan. The title is Education Quality Across Indonesia's District, Estimation from a Policy Experiment. Pak Goldy, you have 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, I hope my internet will be stable along the presentations. So I'm going to present our work, me and Mas Daniel's work. So we try to see the education quality across Indonesia's districts by predicting or exploiting some of the previously policy that had been implemented by the Ministry of Education. So, okay. So this presentation is be divided into 2 parts. In the first part, I will explain how do we estimate the education quality at the district level. And in the second part, I will explain how the education quality across Indonesia. So this is our problem now. So in Indonesia, our learning profile is flat and low. So this paper has just been published. And furthermore, we don't have the information on how is it distributed across district. So we have the data at the district level for the school access, for the school's buildings, for the number of teachers, but we don't have the data for the quality. So we know that the Ministry of Education is shifting from access to quality. But the problem is, if you want to make a good policy, we need the accurate information of the current education performance. Without the information, we don't have the line. We just go into the dark. So what did we do? So we try to estimate the education quality at the district level. So we're trying to find the data that we have. So first we tried the primary school exit examination or the WASDA, but the problem, it's not nationally comparable. We try to see the UN in grade 9 and grade 12. But the problem is it's rife with cheating. And then we see the international test, but it's only representative at national levels. The IFLS, unfortunately, is not representative at provincial levels. And the MOEC actually has the AHDI in 2016 to see the heterogeneity between province. And the test was conducted for the 4th grade, but the problem is it still hides large heterogeneity within province. So it cannot see the difference between districts. And 2 years ago, we oversampled Jakarta and Yogyakarta, and still it's only 2 provinces. We don't have the pictures for all districts. So we try to exploit an exogenous policy. So in 2015, 2017 and 16, the government, the MOEC, they introduced the computer-based testing for the UN, for national examinations. So previously, the test was conducted using paper and pencils, or paper and pen, and they changed it to a computer-based one. And it shows that there's so many schools that are actually cheating on the paper and pen test. So when they adopted the CBT, many schools score decreased, or well, it's dropped significantly. And we see that the schools that's dropping more are schools with lower integrity index. So the integrity index portray how bad how frequent the cheatings happened at the school levels. And school with higher integrity index, they only drop a little bit. And then we try to exploit that data. We have the data at the school levels, and then we try to predict what happened if this school, which used the paper and pen test when they used the CBT test. So we predict that. So we have the predicted or estimated the corrected score. So this is our result. So after we corrected the result, we see that actually there's a lot. There's so many schools at the bottom left who are very low performing. And then after this policy was introduced in 2018, we recreate the corrected UN, and we show that the gap is closing and there's no more school with very low performance. So it shows that when the CBT is introduced and the school understand that they can no longer cheat, they start learning. So that's the first insight. And then from that data, we have the corrected UN, and then we try to plot the UN across districts in 2017. Now we see the inequality of quality between districts. It shows that 2/3 of the top deciles are in Java or Bali. And the bottom decile are all located outside Java and Bali. So it shows that the quality mainly concentrated in Java. And after we see the difference between districts, we would like to know how's the difference within districts. So we check what happened in each district and what is the gap between the best school in one district and the least performing school in that district. And the gap is equivalent almost 6 years of schooling. The highest gap is in Diai, Papua, and the smallest gap is in Garut, West Java. And the average is 0.8, sorry, almost 0.9. And then we try to see, so is the performance has the correlations with the gaps. And our plotting, our study shows that it make a U shape. So if your school is at the low distribution or on the left, when the average score is increased, the gap is decreasing. But when you are at the top end of the quality distribution, as the standardized average scores increasing, the gap is opening. So this is what this U-shaped curve tells us. So that's all the story for the 2017. Now we want to see what happens in 2018. What happens after 1 year of reform using the CBT? So we see that in 2018, the schools are learning. So they move from cheating to learning, and we shows that there's significant increase in the quality of the bottom part of the distributions. So school is getting better. And the overall distribution is increased 0.03 standard deviations, which equivalent to 0.2 years of schooling. So this is a good news. And then we try to see what happens in each province. And when we try to see the changes, we still see massive heterogeneities at the provincial level. It shows that a region like Nusa Tenggara Timur, Bali, and Jakarta, they are gaining. So the education quality between 2017 and 2018 are increasing, and schools in Papua, Aceh, and Jawa Barat, they are decreasing. So they're different. So there are some provinces that are improving, other provinces are not improving. And then we try to see how's the education quality gap within districts. So it shows that the quality gap, which previously 6 years of schooling, is now decreased. So it's decreased about 2 years of schooling. And this is also a good news. So we see that the between district gap is closing and the within district gap is closing. So from these findings, now we know that the quality of education varies significantly across districts, and the gap between lowest and highest quality district is big. And within district, there's also gap, and there's hardly any learning is taking place for the least performing schools. And we also see that the average gap between schools in the districts is as high as 6 years of schooling. So this information is actually telling us that there is something that the government has escaped the attention of the governments, that as long as we don't have a good data to understand what's happening for the school quality at the district level, we don't have the roadmap, or so we cannot draw the roadmap how to build or how to improve the quality and reduce the inequality between districts in Indonesia. So I think that's what I'm going to present. So let's discuss.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Goldy, for the interesting presentation. So now let me invite some questions and comments from the participants. Let me check. Oops. Okay, so let me ask my questions to Pak Goldy. How big is the quality gap in between levels of education?
Unfortunately, we don't have the data for that, but
okay.
Any
opinion or guess on that issue is also good enough for us as a opening knowledge.
Okay, so the problem is that the Indonesian learning profile studied by the RISE program in Indonesia, we see that there's a flat learning for school. So it says that students go to school for 12 years, but they actually not learning anything. So there's a flat learning. So that's actually pictures that there is a education crisis in Indonesia. And even more, the result between 2000 and 2014, the ability is decreasing. So it's like a drop. So it's not only flat and low, but it's getting lower in 2014. Okay. So since then, the government is trying to find a way to improve the quality, but by far there's no district levels.
I see.
Resources available.
So many educators here, so that's alarming for us. And let me invite another questions from the participants. If you have questions, please raise your hands and speak to the presenters, or you can also, we have questions from the comment section. Let me check first. All right. So this is from Arya Swarnata from CISDI. Thank you for the presentation, Goldy. The question is, what is the contributing factors of a closing quality gap within district? I think okay. How confident are you with the notion that CBT drives learning?
Okay. So actually Arya has experience on working on CBT data. So I try to explain how I see this the case. So it seems that the quality gap is, so the first response, when the school cannot cheat anymore, they try to actually teaching the children. However, we found some anecdotal evidence that even using the CBT, some schools that actually they still can cheat. And the data of how the integrity index of the CBT is not currently available for the Ministry of Education, but we are confident to say that the CBT is changing teachers' behavior when it's become a shock. But along the years, so after 2018, there might be some change which we need to recheck what happens at on the fields, whether the teachers actually back the cheating or they teach better.
I see. Okay. Can we have some more comments from the audience? Okay. We'll wait 1 minute. If you have more questions, please raise your hand or write down in the chat box. Okay, just small comments or questions. Would you plan to publish this work?
Yeah, we are planning to publish this work. So actually, this presentation says it should be a longer one. So the first part would be explaining how the government is changing from access for focusing on improving access to improving quality, but that part would be more explained by the previous presenter. So I just cut it and explain how we try to predict or construct a corrected UN scores. And yes, this is on way to publish.
Wait. Oops. When are we? Is that a feedback? Okay. Where can we expect the CBT generation results from this kind of studies? They're not coming yet, right?
And well, so the study was conducted at the junior high school levels. So they may start entering university these years or
this year. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's wait for your other presentation about this. We have one more question from Pa Wisnu. Let me enlarge my chat. It's too small. Pa Wisnu Harto Adiwijoyo. So how about going forward with the data? As in the recent years, we have no national test because of the COVID, both CBT and PBT. Is that?
Yeah. So yeah, COVID is bad news in any way. And then, so the government is actually trying to construct the national assessment or the AN, and the AN is mimicking the AHDI program that they had implemented in 2016. So this AHDI will capture more about the quality of education at school levels. And that information, if available, it can be used to understand better of how our education quality is improving or maybe stagnating in other stories.
I see. I think we have 1 minute. A very interesting presentation from Pak Goldy. And if we don't have any more additional, let's close this session. I would like to thank all the presenters, Bu Kikin, Pak Bondi, and Pak Goldy. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. And see you again in the next conference, and wish you all luck, especially if you're going to process this into another publication. So good luck for you all, and thank you very much for coming to the room I today.